Hello and welcome to another live episode of Touchline Fracas. It's still that kind of weird Christmassy sort of period, so we're streaming this week's pod. I'm joined by three esteemed gentlemen. I'm hoping have started 2024 off in earnest. I'll introduce them in order of appearance. Dr. Mike, your first appearance of 2024. How goes it, sir?
Listen, Happy New Year, brothers. All good. You can't complain. Life is good. You know,
Yeah.
God is still good.
Yeah.
You love it, man. You like it, I love it.
Also joined by Touchy finest, Dan Koogs. How goes it, bro?
Yeah, I'm all right, man. Life is fantastic right now. And then when it comes to football, it's not so great. So it is what it is. I'm here. Pete, the street's been calling for TG reps. So I said, yeah, I need to make sure I'm on this week. So here I am.
Yes, that's good stuff. You're like a much beloved pod within the network, you know. So when you don't appear, even more so after your team doesn't have the best results, it casts, doubt over the genuine nature of your Steam members. So I'm glad you've taken the baton this week. I'm hoping you guys can kind of set it up in a way that every week somebody from Touchy Gooners is around on a Sunday. I mean, we've been doing the pod for the same time for the last, I don't know, half a decade, Disu? Not sure, mate. Disu, how goes it?
Not too bad, brother. Not too bad.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I feel like I spoke to you the other day. We podded the other day. It's not really. Is this the first pod of the new year?
Yeah, you weren't on Mugga. The last main pod was the last pod of 2023.
Oh, okay.
Kind of within my hosting arenas, knowing where we are within the calendar years, part of the to-do list. I worry about the Happy New Year's and you just worry about the responding, yeah?
No, I can't lie. I said after the 5th of January, no more Happy New Year's, man.
That's classic. That's classic, Disu. Before we start, I've got to do the usual and plug the socials. If you're somebody who's watching along with this live stream and you're not subscribed to the YouTube, please do so. A lot of the different pods post their content, and 2024 for us is going to be a year where you're seeing a lot more visual content from Touchline Fracas, the main pod, and across the media group. If you're somebody who listened on Spotify and you haven't given us a rating, please do so. 5 stars, preferably. Tell us why you like it. If you're somebody who listens on Apple and you haven't done it, please do the same thing. And if you're someone who's not following on the Twitter or any of the socials, please do so. With all that being handled, let's get into the business of FA Cup weekend, the magic of the FA Cup. Can't get rid of this. This is what British football is all about. The small teams and minnows taking on the established teams in the Premier League and winning stuff and having those magical Saturdays and Sundays. Are any of you particular FA Cup fans on live stream?
Yeah, I like it. I think it's a trophy that you should never look down. It's one of those trophies. I went to the final in 2022 and we won it, and it was a great day out. So great day out at Wembley with the boys. Can't complain. Good trophy.
Yeah. How about you, Koogs? Because you guys have run the most, haven't you?
Yeah. I love the FA Cup, man. It's one of my earliest memories of football. Seeing us win against Chelsea, that 2-0. That's probably one of the maybe the first 2 or 3 games that I can say I remember for minute 1 to minute 90 when I was growing up. And then similar to Mike, when we first won the FA Cup after that, big trophy draw, I went to every game bar the final that season. I remember I was on holiday watching the final in a sports bar in Miami, one of the best days of my life. Managed to get to the final again when we beat Chelsea 2-1, Ramsey header. And that was a great day as well. So, I'm always a big fan of the FA Cup. I don't really understand this concept of, sacking trophies, etc., when, unless you're, a Real Madrid who have won 3 peats, Champions Leagues and all of this. I think a club like Arsenal, you have to take these cups seriously because, we're not guaranteed a trophy every year for me. So, I always think we should be trying to win these games. So, yeah, I like the FA Cup.
I respect that. It's kind of, you gave your thoughts on the FA Cup, and you also kind of a thinly veiled attack on your manager and your result this evening. So we might as well get into business. It was the last game. Well, we've got a game tomorrow against Wigan, but who's really checking for that? It was the big game of this tie of the FA Cup, this round of the FA Cup. Arsenal at home versus Liverpool. For me, looking at it on paper, as Arsenal at home, expecting weakened teams. Liverpool haven't necessarily been the most impressive recently, but neither have Arsenal. But I thought Arsenal would probably squeak it out. It's their pitch, not waterlogged. Grass is great. But yeah, thanks. Grass is great, but it didn't actually turn out that way in the result. So let's look into. I'll come to you first, Dr. Mike, to the victor, the spoils, as they say. What were your thoughts going into this game? Talking about the lineup, talking about your expectations. You know,
I think going into the game, I thought it was a game. It's the least important game in a run of games we have coming up. We have the semi-final on Tuesday, I think it is. Then we have a league game after that, and for me, the focus is on pushing really hard in the league, pushing really hard with the League Cup, pushing hard in Europa League, and trying to see what we can do in all three of those competitions. The FA Cup for me was a free hit. I thought he'd rotate more heavily than he did. He didn't. He's put out a strong team, and I guess the manager will probably put a strong team out because he wants momentum, rhythm, and he wants to see what it looks like without Salah. And I guess this game might be a precursor to the game we're going to play in the Emirates, at the Emirates later on in February. I think start of February we're going to play them again the Emirates. So maybe try to see a few things for that game because Salah probably misses that game too. So yeah, I kind of just like went into this game. I think a lot of us in the Cop In chat were quite like laid back about it. A loss wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world. A victory was always going to be nice. Like beating Arsenal is always nice. So yeah, I was kind of laid back going into the game. The lineup did really surprise me. You know, I was surprised by how strong it was, but at the same time, like the games kind of work out in a way that means that we can like rotate a few players and it be okay to kind of go strong today. So yeah, just really happy with the result. Obviously, I'm sure we'll talk about that a bit later, but yeah, going into the game, I was really laid back about it.
Fair. Koogs, on your end, obviously you've kind of ended 2023 not in the best form at all. You lost to West Ham, you lost to Fulham. You haven't kind of established that gap you wanted between yourselves and City with the absence of KDB. He's all talking about, listen, I'm coming back and I'm going to be the best player in the world. So you know what time he's on. What were your thoughts going into this game?
Yeah, I think this game was more important for us than it was for Liverpool. To be honest, coming off the back of that bad form, I think there's 1 win in 6 in all competitions. There's a couple draws there in the Champions League and in the league as well coming into this. So I thought we needed to come at first game of the new year, put in a performance, show that, you know, what we've been seeing in the past few games, Fulham, West Ham, etc., was more of a blip rather than, you know, something that is like a terminal problem, basically. And so, you know, the way we started the game, I was thinking, yeah, you know, we've got something for these, man. I think we had more than a few chances to take the lead. And I think, you know, if we did take the lead, I'm not sure, you know, whether Liverpool, you know, given the way that they played in that first half, would have had the encouragement that they did. But, you know, as we've seen time and time again, all the years we've been watching football, you don't take your chances, you're going to get punished. And, you know, any Premier League team can do that, let alone, you know, the team that's top of the table right now in Liverpool. So when we went into the game 0-0, I did fear the worst, really. I think Liverpool started the second half pretty well. But then we still had, you know, I think 2 or 3 gilt-edged chances. I think the best ones probably fell to Saka, who is going through, you know, quite a poor, you know, period of form at the moment, and that's coming at the same time as all of our other attackers as well. And so, you know, we might, you know, speak on the manager, this, that, and the other. Like I say, in all my chats, people are like,
we will. Don't you worry, brother.
People are like, you know, we need to think about this guy's future. We need to do this, that, and the other. And, you know, my main criticisms of the manager is not really for any of his coaching per se, right? Because I think if you look at these games where the build-up is fantastic, I think, you know, bar Fulham, where I think it was poor. But you look at these games where we're dominating, we're creating chances. Like in this game in that first half, we literally should have been 3-0 up. You know, the press is really good. Out of possession, we're really good. So I'm saying this guy clearly knows what he's doing. But my issue with Arteta is that he probably is a bit too slow to make key adjustments, right? And I think we've seen this throughout his whole career at Arsenal, which probably a learning curve for him. But today, why is this? You've been hooking Martinelli, I think, every game for like the past 8 games. Why is this the first game where you decide to start someone else left wing, right? You've been seeing Gabriel Jesus has been missing chance after chance after chance after chance. Why is this the first game that you decide to start someone else at number 9? And again, for me, I think all of these names, I'm literally doing my utmost to ignore them, but they're killing me. Yeah. And for me, it's like if you look at the way that we've allocated funds, I think it's complete mismanagement, right? if I came to you and I said you're going to spend 105 million on Declan Rice, that's banked, yeah, and you have another area of the pitch that you need to go and refresh and certify after you've been chasing Pedro Neto, you've been chasing Mikhailo Mudryk, right, and you've been watching Gabriel Jesus miss BCM after BCM after BCM. You need to go and refresh that front line, and instead you go and spend 65 million on Kai Havertz and talking about his versatility. Then you're only playing him in one position where he looks dreadful. I think that's poor, So I'm looking at him and I'm asking him to, you need to make these adjustments quicker, and you need to stop hoarding talent, because now where you've spent this amount on Kai Havertz and Declan Rice, that's the majority of the budget been blown this summer. You brought in a goalkeeper on loan because now we're pushed up against FFP, and I say to you, right, what can we do here? Eddie Nketiah, okay, how much do you actually rate this guy? Yes, fine. You're talking about his attitude. You're talking that you're seeing him, lambast Lokonga on the Amazon Prime documentary, this, that, and the other. But when it comes down to it, and we need a goal, you're bringing him on for the last 9 minutes of a game. If Jesus is missing, Eddie Nketiah is not starting in the Premier League ahead of Gabriel Jesus. So why are we doing this thing with Eddie, with Smith Rowe, with Reece Nelson, where it's like, if you really rate these guys, you would play them way more than you do, right? And they would be getting way more minutes, but you don't want to sell them and actually invest in someone that you do trust, that you do trust to rotate with these guys. So, I look at this and I say, if you really want Pedro Neto, let Smith Rowe go, let Nelson go, sell them this January, let Nketiah go this January, because look, it came to a big game now. Eddie's fit. You started Havertz up top. So why are you keeping Eddie here when there's 6 Premier League teams that want him for 30 million? FFP, they're talking about pure profit, right? If you get 30 million for Eddie Nketiah, that gives you 100 million to spend in terms of FFP if you're amortizing out over the 5 years, this, that, and the other. Like, it gives you money to spend, but you don't want to do that.
Yes,
but you don't want to do that. So to me, he doesn't help himself in this stuff, and what we're seeing on the pitch at the moment is not really that good enough.
Fair, thank you, Dan. That was very passionate rant. I appreciate it. Disu, you were watching the game as a neutral. How did it play out for you? Did you feel like Liverpool deserved the win? Were Arsenal just poor finishing in front of goal? Was it an even sort of game? How did it play out for you as a neutral?
As a neutral, I want to say neutral because I have a very, very strong dislike and distaste for both sets of fans. So I want nothing but mutual destruction for both. But I think today's game was a smash and grab. I think Liverpool shoplifted them. Do you know what I'm saying? The Arsenal went through all the aisles, pick up the milk, you know what I'm saying? The nappies, the meat, the avocados, orange juice. Got to the checkout, about to put the trolley away, put the bags in the boot. And then Liverpool came and just snatched it, cuz just give me that. That's what happened. I think Arsenal should have won the game quite comfortably. I thought they played pretty well. Like, they were doing pretty much everything great. They defended well. Every time Liverpool tried to attack, they stamped it out. They will pickpocket Liverpool in midfield areas and half the pitch. They were circulating the ball well. They were counter-attacking well. They created big chance after big chance. And even not just the big chances, there was even moments where a good touch or the right pass makes an even bigger chance. So I think the result is actually like the result is funny because really and truly Arsenal should have won. Like, if Liverpool lost 3-0, they couldn't have complained. Right? They literally could not have complained. But again, the players in front of goal were really, really bad. Havertz, you're not surprised with what Havertz was putting up. But Saka was a surprising one. I don't think he had a good game. I think he's still in Alcatraz from Joe Gomez, so that's 2 games in a row. He's in Alcatraz. Maybe he can appeal and get out in time for the February game. But he missed some good opportunities. But Havertz, this is what Havertz does. Do you get what I'm saying? I think Arsenal's midfield was really good. I thought Rice, Jorginho, and Odegaard played really well. Mainly Odegaard and Jorginho, in my opinion. And I think Arsenal defended well. But if you don't take your chances, you're always liable to a Trent special, who I thought was excellent again today. And then obviously a counter-attack is what happens when you're down these amount of goals. But I'm interested to know what the Arsenal fans think in terms of how they solve this, because earlier on, I think we've played 20 league games. I think at least half of them Arsenal looked quite tepid in attack and creativity and the ball circulation. I think in recent weeks there's been games where they're actually created quite a lot of chances, but they're not taking them, and they don't really seem to have anybody that's clinical right now. Martinelli's historically clinical, but he hasn't had a good season so far. So it's interesting to see what Arsenal fans think the fix is. Is it buy more players, or is it just keep pushing and the players will start to click and then they'll start to take their chances? But yeah, I think Arsenal should have won a game. I can't say it's a robbery because take your chances, you get what I'm saying? But Liverpool will take that. And also, Liverpool looked like, who was missing today? Salah and Van Dijk. The Liverpool team looked completely different. It just looked like a bunch of any use of Alisson and Trent. Do you get what I'm saying? That the team looked really, really bland. So it'll be interesting to see how they deal without Salah for AFCON. But yeah, man, hold that Arsenal. Hold that.
Yeah. Koogs, I think within that there was a kind of a question for you. So you've kind of spoken about, getting the likes of Eddie and Nketiah out and using that money to strengthen the squad. I'm interested in discussing, I guess, trying to separate like how the games go from how your fan base tends to react to them, because I think there's a difference between the game against West Ham where on the balance of chances you play that sort of game 50 times, you're going to win the game 48, 49 times. And the game against Fulham where you were poor, you didn't create any chances. The opposition came, they stifled you, and they were well worth the win. Again, Disu said if Liverpool had lost 3-0 today, that they couldn't have been annoyed about that. So that again suggests that in terms of the process, so this is the part that I look at the manager at the most. How are you helping us get the team into the position for the talented players to then consistently take advantage of it? That is being done on the pitch. What is then happening with the players' execution, and how do you kind of separate the performances from fans then coming out after the game like, this player's crap, that's not good, Arteta needs to leave? Because I saw the XG and I think you comfortably won that on XG and it comfortably won that on the eye test. So yeah, we'll be eager to hear your thoughts here too.
Yeah, I think the big problem is for me, and I've said it on the last pod that I was on, is that if you look at what the top teams do every season is they invest in their attack, they lean into their attack. I think Arsenal just haven't done that under Arteta, right? So if I tell you in 4 seasons we spent 600 million pounds, but only 65 million of that, 10% has gone on the attack, it shows, right? So when I say our defense looks good, our build-up looks good, that's where all the money's gone. Do you get what I'm saying, right? So I look at this and I say, really and truly, if I look across to Liverpool, what's the age of their attackers? The guys that they really rely on to back, right? Like Salah, he's, probably on the end of his prime looking like this, 31. But look at the rest of the attackers. Jota,
is that still the best right winger in the world for you?
Yeah, definitely, without question, right? So you got Salah.
Really? I thought somebody else was going to be the best.
I've never said that Saka is, and you can search it.
You
I said he will be, and I've still got a year, G.
You said that 2 years ago. You said 2 years ago.
I still got a year. I still got a year. But the thing is, I don't need to talk up Saka. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I think people can do too much on him, right? But I think, I'm a big fan and I'm definitely biased towards him, but I don't need to put him in places that he's not, right? Like, Salah's clearly better than Saka. That's fine for me to say, to be honest. But my main point is, you look at Liverpool's attackers, right? Diaz, I don't know how old is he, 27, 26?
27.
Jota, 26.
But you don't rate with these man though.
It's not about whether I rate them or not.
Why talk about the ages?
It's because I think, right, when you talk about the guys that you can rely on consistently, with a 22-year-old, you might be an elite 22-year-old, right? You might be a very good 22-year-old, but you're going to have peaks and troughs. You're not going to be as reliable, I think, unless you're a special player to perform every single week. It just doesn't happen, right? And I know people say, oh, look at CR7, look at Messi when they were this age, look at Haaland, but these guys are absolute freaks of nature. I don't think Martinelli and Saka are necessarily in that world-class bracket immediately. At this present time, that maybe they get there eventually, but I don't think they're there now, and I think that's just a fact. You look at Man City, what they've done in their attack. They bought Amaris, they bought 100 million on Jack Grealish, who, whether you think he's that guy or not, you get a consistent base level performance from him. You look at Haaland that they brought in. They spend in their attack. They brought Doku in this season, who is young, but you know what you're going to get, especially from sort of beating a man, etc., kind of thing. So I just think we haven't invested enough into the attack, and it shows. You rely on someone like Eddie Nketiah, but you don't give him enough minutes. You didn't give him any loans. He's not played enough games to come in. And even though he's, I think, 24, he doesn't have the minutes of a 24-year-old. He's got the minutes of like a 19-year-old. Do you get what I'm saying? You got Reece Nelson, same thing, 24 years old. He's had 1 6-month loan in Holland where he's been able to play consistently. So then I'm looking at and I'm saying, we've got these three, Jesus, Saka, Martinelli up top. Who do we have buttressing them that we can come in and support? We don't have anyone. You know, you talk about Trossard, who's probably the guy who is, you know, older. You think he's 28, 29. But what level is Trossard? We bought him for 26 million. This guy was 28 playing his football at Brighton, scoring 8 goals in the league. That is not a shooter. That guy's not going to take Martinelli's spot. He's not going to take Jesus' spot. He's not going to take Saka's spot. So what's he doing here at the club? You get what I'm saying? So, you know, we just underinvested in that front line. And I think it's very, very evident on the pitch. So I want
to play devil's advocate there, Koog. So if the manager's of the opinion that those three, Saka, Martinelli, and Jesus, are his guys, and what he wants to be able to do is supplement them and be able to rotate them out and not have the quality fall off a cliff, don't you think that a Trossard, a Eddie Nketiah are good enough quality squad players? Because if you're thinking, like, let's say, for example, Jesus was a squaddy at Manchester City, and that's the level you're aspiring to, the player that had Jesus on the bench is Sergio Aguero. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the level of player that it takes to bench a Jesus is, we talk about world class, and we'll have a discussion about that later in this pod, is a player who's firmly in that world class bracket, you know? So I don't think Arsenal are necessarily there yet, and I think he has prioritized building other parts of your squad, but it feels like naturally the next place that he needs to spend big in is that forward line. But you don't have a bottomless chest of money, so it's going to take time, no?
Yeah, but that's my point about resource allocation, right? So if I said to you, we need an attacking mid, we need a forward, I'm not spending 65 million on Kai Havertz. Yeah, I'm just
that's a manager preference thing. So to him he was addressing that in buying Kai Havertz. That hasn't so far materialized in that regard. But if he's tried to buy a player who can play, you know, left 8, false 9, wherever else he kind of shows up on the pitch, from his perspective, he has tried to put some money towards addressing that issue in the squad. It just hasn't quite materialized, right?
Yeah, but for me, if you watch the guy for the last 3 years, is it a surprise that has not materialized?
Dan, okay, big question for you then, Dan, because you've spoken about a lack of investment. You're unhappy with the players you have in those positions. You're the Arsenal manager for the day. Who would you want to sign for Arsenal? Who are the players you're looking at?
For me, I don't think you're going to get a good striker in January, right? So I would invest. I would sell Nketiah, right? Number one, I would sell him. I think we have players who can play number 9 if Jesus isn't there and still be more effective than Eddie. So he's the first one that I would sell. And I would go and put whatever Wolves will take to sign Pedro Neto, personally. He can play both sides to a highly, highly effective degree. You can sit Saka down sometimes. You can take him off at 60 minutes. You can sit Martinelli down. You can take him off at 60 minutes. And the quality doesn't drop.
So right? Devil's advocate argument on Neto, right? Because I'm a huge Neto fan. Neto, to me, doesn't look like he will be... He looks like the sort of player that plays... He's obviously a top player, Neto. Let's be absolutely clear about this. But he doesn't look like the sort of player you need in terms of... What Arsenal need at the moment is a player who's 1 in 2 or can become 1 in 2 at some point in the future.
You're not going to do that in January, though. You're not going to.
Yeah, not necessarily January, but I think if you're investing in your forwards, right? So Neto might block you from buying the players 1 and 2 in the summer, is what I'm saying. So it might be that what Arteta needs to do is wait it out, and then in the summer put all your chips, like he did with Declan Rice, put all your chips this summer in a killer who's going to be 1 and 2. Because Neto for me is a really good player, but I don't think Neto is a 1 and 2. I think Neto's sort of player that will score 10 goals, get 10 assists, but be amazing, but not a killer. You need killers.
My thing is we need that and we need a striker. So then in summer, I'll sign a striker as well, right? So Arsenal.
Who would striker be? Would it be Osimhen? Is that the one you're looking at?
For me, I do like Osimhen, but I do like Osimhen, right? But one thing today that, like, after seeing that Jesus injury, I can't deal with another injury-prone striker. So I've looked at, Osimhen's injury record, and it does worry me quite a lot. So when you go and I think they're saying 120 million euro as his release clause, and you pay that, and this guy's only going to be available for 20 games, I'm not sure That's the one. Ivan Toney, I do think he's a good player. I'm not sure about his fit for Arsenal. And the price for Ivan Toney, I'm not really with it. To be honest, when they're saying 100 mil for Ivan Toney, I see there's a couple of other strikers.
Rafael Leao, is he a player you're a fan of?
I do
think he's a sort of player with a ceiling that could be like he could explode somewhere.
I do like Leao. I like Victor Boniface, but it looks like he misses a lot of chances just like Jesus. So I'm not sure he takes us up in terms of that 1 and 2 thing that you're talking about. And then there's a striker at Sporting, Victor Gyökeres, that I do like the look of from when I've seen him, who is scoring lots of goals in Portugal at the moment, and he was in a championship last season. So that's kind of like the guys that I would look at. Dusan Vlahovic as well, I think would be a decent fit. If you see how Havertz played today, I think Vlahovic could do quite an analogous performance to that, where you're not doing too much on the ball. There was no jinky from Havertz, but I thought he was actually effective in his number 9 play. But you need that finish at the end, and I think that's what Vlahovic can bring, as well as that, sort of back to goal 9 play as well. So,
why do I love Vlahovic so much?
Why what?
Why do man love this Vlahovic brother so much?
I think he's quite techie, to be honest. I think he's quite techie, and I think he has. If it's between sort of Vlahovic and Toney, I don't think there's a big discrepancy with their level, to be honest.
Are we sure about that?
Yeah.
Why?
I think so. In terms of what I've seen, personally, I don't think there's a massive difference in their level. But what I like about Vlahovic is he seems like he's more hungry to score goals. Like when he lays it off, he sprints into the box, and I think Tony's more of a jogger for me. So this
is a brother who's not even 1 and 2 for Juventus.
He was more than 1 and 2 for Fiorentina. I think Juventus' style doesn't necessarily lean towards lots of chances, etc. But I think he takes.
But Brentford's chance. Brentford are the chance creating demons, right?
No, but I think they play to Tony's strengths way more than what Juventus do.
You man are disgusting, fam. You deserve it. I hope you get Vlahovic. I'm not gonna lie.
Question for you, Dan, as well. Seeing as well on the subject of Arsenal, I think we focus a lot on Arsenal in this segment, which is interesting. But have you now changed your expectations for the season? Because I think in the summer, and I did my rant. You don't know what it looks like rant. That was off the back of you and the other Dan talking quite crazy. You're talking like, look, you have belief in your team.
What did I say that was crazy?
I think one thing I didn't like the Arsenal fans were doing in the summer and the start of the season was writing other teams off as though
I didn't write you off.
God's gift. I think you did. I did.
No, I didn't.
I think you did. You said it was after the Tottenham game. I remember. You said that
I made a prediction. I made a prediction. I didn't write you off.
You got to let the brother speak, cuz.
Let me speak.
After
the game, you said after the Tottenham game, we lost the game 2-1, and you said based on what you saw, you think both teams will kind of fade out and finish in the top 4 somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Where what's happened now is the period we just had. Now I call the period we just had now the Christmas period. Is your chain real? Is your chain real? So can you win back to back and see and get it cooking? Over that period, our chain is real. Your chain isn't. You've shown over that period when it comes to games.
There's 18 games left, man.
I'm talking about this period just now.
So why is that the is your chain? Why is that the is your chain real? Because last season we came through that period. For me, last season we came through that period, top of the league, 5 points clear. Was our chain real last season? No, it was not. Right. So
yeah, it wasn't.
Why are you calling that period the is your chain real?
I think so.
Just because Liverpool did well in that period.
Let me land. There are two periods that I think are decisive in the title race. I think the period in December we have 7 league games is hugely important, right, in terms of staying in touch. And then that period, obviously, the back end of the season is really important. The reason why I say this period is your chain real is because I remember the season we had with City a couple of seasons ago where we finished behind them, unfortunately. Chelsea were also in the mix that period. And I remember thinking, not all 3 teams are going to stay in the hunt post-Christmas. There's always going to be one team, when it's a 3-horse race over from the start of the season, one team always falls off. So I'm saying in the context of this season, this period is your chain fake or real period. The first one, they're going to have a second one, the climax in the second half of the season. But for the first half of the season, I think what Arsenal have shown right is, they're a good team, but the way your fans are talking doesn't match up to the level of your team. You don't know what it looks like.
Okay, so was that a question for me?
It wasn't a question. It was just a
But
comment.
you said, no, because you
Well,
started.
you can go. You can go.
started it as a
Yeah,
question.
kind of a question, but also just me
Started as a
flying
question.
off.
Okay, there's 18 games left, right? So, when you talk about that's the is your chain real?
It's the first is your chain real period. The second one's coming up.
Okay, so City level on points with us at the moment. Is their chain real?
City Heritage says their chain is very real.
Okay,
That's
so yeah, but it's heritage. Yeah, but it's heritage you're talking about, right? So it's like it doesn't actually matter that 2 games ago we were top of the league. So 2 games later, our chain is now fake. Is that what you're telling me? So in 2 games, if you drop in 2 games, if you drop points and we go back ahead of you, is your chain then fake?
Our chain's never fake. The bus down.
Your bus down chain. Remind me what happened in the last 2 league seasons.
Why?
What happened? Where was your chain then?
I don't, guys.
Question
Let
for
me
you, Dan.
interject. No, let me interject. I don't want.
Let me just ask a quick
No, wait,
question.
hold on. No, Dr. Mike, give me a second. I don't want this pod to descend into the mano el mano YouTube guys have every time.
I'm just asking questions back because what he said doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I appreciate your perspective as well, Dan, because you also have to understand who you're dealing with when you're dealing with Dr. Mike. He's here to incite, he's here to get people stirred up, and it's kind of worked on you hook, line, and sinker once again. So let's keep the
him right where I want him.
Yeah, let's keep the conversation.
All the veins popping out of his head.
I'm calm, but the thing is,
no, you are not calm.
I'm calm. The thing is, I'm actually calm. But what I don't like is when man just say anything, I retort. Yeah, you don't have a valid response back, but then I'm the one that's hot. Do you get what I'm saying?
No, but you lot chain is definitely not real though.
Yeah,
we'll see. We will see.
No, we've seen. Your chain's not real.
There's literally 18 games left.
18 games left. 18 months left. 18 weeks. Your chain is not real.
We will see. We will see.
So Dan, back to my question. Actually,
and it's not real, bro. It's not real,
Dan,
bro.
Have you shifted your expectations for the season? Because I think ultimately, Dan, if you put your neck on the line, none of this humble talk, you expected, or you're desperate for Arsenal Football Club to win the league. You haven't seen it since you're 10 years of age, I think it was, maybe. You can't probably remember it that well. You're
12.
desperate for it to happen.
I do remember.
12. Okay, you kind of maybe remember it because Lundberg's goals in that season, maybe you can bring some memories back. But it's hazy. You want it badly. Is it going to happen this season, Daniel?
Wait, no, I don't think so, to be honest.
Then your chain's not real, brother.
So you're agreeing the chain ain't real?
I don't feel Liverpool gonna win it either though. So
okay,
is the chain real?
Well, we will see.
Not real, though.
We will see.
Yeah, but my thing, this is what I'm saying, right?
It's not real, bro. It's okay, fam.
Okay, that's
fine.
Bro. That's fine. But what I'm saying is, Disu, who would you bet your money on to win the title from this stage? City. So does that mean Liverpool now being top after 20 games? Does that mean their chain is real?
No, I don't think their chain is real either.
So what are we doing here?
Your chain's not real.
But a Liverpool fan is telling me that about chains being fake.
I don't care.
His is also not real. It's just a chain is not real off. Basically.
Look, I think ultimately, Dan, we have a bigger chance of proving if our chain is real or not. I think ultimately, I think with Arsenal, I think what I would say.
This is the competition. So this is the competition to see who's got the best fakes. Yeah.
No, not quite. Let me land.
Yeah. Cool. Mike. Exactly. You got better fakes, bro. You got better fakes. I'll hold that.
Let me land.
Exactly that. It's the one.
Let me land because I don't think the league for me is a foregone conclusion that City are going to win it, right? So I think we're in a good position now where we're 5 points clear of them. Yes, they have a game in hand, of course, but I'd rather point to the board.
Do you think if you play like today for the rest of the season, you man are going to win the league?
We won't. That's the thing. So I think on today's game as well, because we've spoken a lot about Arsenal, we can talk about us in this game. I think the first half, Arsenal were fantastic. I thought Arsenal's press was really, really good. And I think ultimately, Arsenal are a good side. You remind me a lot of that Chelsea team from a couple of years ago, the kind of 21-22 team, where they're hard to beat, that Chelsea team, right? They get to 2 cup finals that season. I think they lose to a quarterfinal to Real Madrid in the Champions League. They're a really good team. The problem that team had was they missed chances, and the players they had in the final third weren't of the quality to finish chances. Havertz, I think, was part of that team. Werner, not killers. Arsenal had the same problem, and I knew as soon as the first half finished, we would win the game. And do you know why? Because you'd had your spell. You'd had your period in the game where you'd missed loads of chances. You'd been dominant. You had 14 shots. I think they had periods in the second half, but the XG in the second half. Let me finish this.
This is what I don't like.
No. Let me finish. No.
Your team wins because man start.
Let me finish. Let me finish.
You play better in the second half.
Let me finish.
Okay, go on.
Let me finish. I'm not capping. The reason I knew you'd win is because I feel like Arsenal at the moment, it's become a thing within their fan base. In the stadium, you feel the frustration after every missed chance in the first half. That they are missing chances. So the reason why I thought we've survived their big spell, I thought, of course, they're going to create chances in the second half. But I think we will have moments on a transition. We won't dominate the game. We'll have moments in transition where we can hurt them. That's why I thought when we survive the first half and survive the onslaught, the dominance, the pressing, the really good attacking play from Arsenal, I thought we have a chance here. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying we battered them in the second half. I'm just saying that we survived the moments of pressure in the first half. We survived 14 shots in the first half. In the second half, they were never going to pen us in and have another 14 shots. That's my point.
Fair.
You got the better Sanucci, man. It's cool.
But Dan, look, we might not win the league, but I'm confident that we can make a big push for it, right? I think, like I've always said to you, and I've said to the others in the pod, I think when you have players of Alisson, Trent, Salah, and Van Dijk's quality, and you have 3 or 4 of those guys in the pitch most weeks, you're gonna have a good chance to football games. And I think ultimately the difference between us and you is you haven't got players in that caliber yet. I think Saliba will be in that caliber at some point. I think Odegaard could be at some point, but at the moment we have those 4 players. And I think the reason why I'm confident is because those 4 players are match winners. You see Trent today strolling around the carpet like he owns the place. I mean, some of the passes he's playing effortless. I think ultimately quality is decisive, and I think we have the quality to win this league. We might not win it, but we have a better chance of winning it than you guys do.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough, right? That's fair enough. And this will be the last thing that I say is like if you actually look at the performances of the 2 teams, right? Like I can categorically say that we played better than you today. And if we play like that, the same way that we played against West Ham, against Aston Villa, against Brighton, in games that we not necessarily won, I personally think that Saka is not playing at his level right now. I don't think Martinelli is playing at his level. I even think Gabriel Jesus, yes, with the misses, but he actually goes on streaks as well, right? That just because we've lost a couple of games doesn't mean that now we're just going to be losing every week.
Like I said, Daniel, you're a really good team.
So to your point about us falling away, we're not 9 points behind. Yeah, right. We're 5 points. It's a couple of game swings, right? So all I'm saying is when I said I didn't write Liverpool off, what you're currently doing now is writing Arsenal off, and I don't think that's fair.
No. You wrote Liverpool off, Daniel.
How do I know it's not Martinelli's level? Yeah, is that what you're saying? Okay, so. Obviously, I'm going to get the calculators out. Yeah, you know, I like the statistics, right? But ultimately, I think our left-hand side, it needs work, and it's not hitting the heights that it's hit in previous seasons. And you know what I think the reasons for that are, right? So Martinelli's underlying numbers ordinarily are much, much better than what he's shown this season. And I think
numbers, could you clarify for the listeners?
So in terms of his XG expected assists as well, they're normally like 90 plus percentiles. This season they're way down. So in terms of XG, I don't think he's even in the top 50 players in the league for XG, which is a problem when you're talking about Arsenal trying to score, because for me he's the best. That's crazy.
Daniel's giving Charlemagne energy.
He's Koogs, brother. He's Koogs. Call him Koogs,
yeah. For me, I think this is it's a systemic issue, right? So like even the season before last, where I think he got 7 goals or 6 goals, he was like 91st percentile XG per game, expected assist per game, etc. So I think what we've seen from Martinelli, so what I've seen from Martinelli, even from when he first came under Emery, you've seen him shooting in the Europa League, you've seen him, scoring on his Premier League debut and all of that stuff. I think this guy is an output guy. But right now, at the moment, we're not putting him in positions to get his output today. And also he's in bad form, on top of the systemic issues as well. So, for me, I think he has levels to go. I think Saka clearly has levels to go. And Jesus, I don't really need to speak about him. Really, he is what he is at this point.
Fair. Thank you. Interesting game, some interesting thoughts. Obviously, we'll do what we do. We'll continue to pod. We'll continue to observe. You can catch Dr. Mike on Cop and Frack. You can obviously catch Daniel Koogs on Touchy Gooners. You put out a really interesting article this week on the Patreon. Declan Rice a midfield hindrance. So if you haven't,
Really good read, by the way, man. Really good
it was.
stuff.
I really
Good
enjoyed
stuff.
that.
Great
So if you
analysis, man.
So somebody give me the conclusions. I don't know if I want to read it or not.
The answer's no, brother. The answer's no. He's not a hindrance.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I ain't read that. All right, my own Patreon, please.
Let's do a quick roundup of this weekend's FA Cup results. So we had a few teams play on Friday evening. So we had Brentford and Wolves 1-1 draw. So they're going to play a replay. Fulham beat Rotherham. Tottenham beat Burnley 1-0. A really good goal from Pedro Porro, who has probably the quote of the year. What did he say? Lock me in a prison cell. Let me loose in a prison cell, and I'll become the captain or something. I'll become the owner. It's something absolutely crazy. But he made the quote when he wasn't playing well. That's it. Let me loose in prison, and I'll end up owning the place. So he made that quote when people were on his case. He wasn't getting the job done, and now he's been one of the leading fullbacks in the league this season. I love Ange Postecoglou. He's so brutal in interviews. Like the journalists don't know what to do with him. They're getting Timo Werner. They're getting Timo Werner in. What are you guys' thoughts on that move?
Despicable, fam. Despicable.
Tottenham have Richarlison, who's a low technical, in terms of technical quality, low technical quality forward, fairly quick, can get a goal, but not the best in terms of hold up play. Brennan Johnson, again, low technical quality, quick, pacey.
Brennan Johnson ain't got low technical quality.
Compared to, like, for example, like the top wingers in the league, I don't think he's a top technical quality.
Like who?
Think about Martinelli. I think
Martinelli.
Rashford.
Wait. Do you think Brennan Johnson's technical quality is low in comparison to Martinelli?
I think so.
You're out.
In terms of ball striking,
you're off your rocker. Okay, what about ball control and dribbling?
Hey, I think Brennan Johnson today from them switches though.
Martinelli, I think, in tight spaces is better than Brennan Johnson.
Unusual.
It's not unusual. His first touch is good. His second touch might not be, but his first one is.
I think ultimately what Tottenham needed was a player in the profile of like an Ivan Toney, maybe a player who's like good at their back to goal, can retain possession, like someone who's a bit more technically smooth. Because I think Tottenham's forwards, a lot of them turn over the ball quite quickly. So when you're trying to sustain attacks, if you have forwards like Johnson, Werner, Richarlison, these guys who turn over the ball a lot, you're going to struggle to sustain attacks. And I think ultimately Werner's another one like that who can't retain the ball. Technical quality is not the best, I think. So,
let me disagree with you, because I don't think they lack attack sustainability because of the way they play, and the players that have their two fullbacks when they invert are quality. They can go machine for machine with centre midfielders in those areas, and they've got good midfielders as well. Their issue is for all their play, they don't create enough chances, and because they play so aggressively and they push so many bodies forward, it's like, and I also think that my estimation is that Andrew's doing that because they don't have enough quality in the attack to generate those chances without taking that amount of risk. And you just see them miss chances all the time. So I do think that whether you're technical or not, I think a striker or attacker that's dangerous and that can actually convert those moments into a high quality chance or an actual goal is necessary for them. And this
but Werner's not that, right? So Werner's not that.
This is why I don't like the Werner thing, because like I charted like a good 55 to 70 attackers in recent years, right? So I'm talking left wingers, right wingers, second strikers, yeah. And in terms of big chance conversion, and Werner is the second worst. The only person worse than him is Nunes. There's 3 players that have a below 30% big chance conversion. Havertz at 28 point something, Werner at 25, and then Nunes is bottom at like 21. So we've seen it with Werner. I understand. I can see how people can think that they can make the Werner thing work because he's got very good movement. He can create chances. He can actually beat a player with a quick shimmy, but that conversion rate is just too poor. And I just don't think it's just like having a faster version of Richarlison. I think Richarlison, even though he's gone down in his finishing, is still a better finisher than Werner. So, but again, it's difficult to get a striker or attacker on loan in January. Because if he was that good, the chances are you can't get him on loan unless it's very, very peculiar circumstances, like a Felix. That's like a peculiar circumstance, I might say. So
it's one of those ones where I think Dan Stoffer said it in the past. It's like, do you bring this guy in because he's available and because he's a body or because he's cheap, or do you bring this guy in because you actually rate them? Do you get what I'm saying?
And just like he's going to make an impact, yeah.
Yeah,
I do think they need bodies though, obviously, because Son's away for only God knows how long. So I think they do need somebody in an attack. But it'll be interesting to see if they could have actually bought a player rather than, I don't know, their what do you call it? Their budgets. But yeah, I'm not sure if any of you lot caught the game. I actually thought that Burnley had a lot of opportunities to actually create a chance and have I think they had a few chances, but they really messed up a lot of transitions. But the Spurs fullbacks are so good. That was my takeaway from the game. Udogie and Pedro Porro are like top 3 in their position already in the league, in my opinion. Porro's up there with all of them. Like, he is spectacular. Amazing goal. But even outside the goal, he's super fast, he's tenacious, and he's comfortable. Some of the passes he plays are actually very, very good.
Unbelievable.
And Udogie he looks like a flair player in the pockets. He's comfy on the ball. Reverse passes, neat 1-2s. Like, yeah, they've got a lot of quality there. It'll be interesting to see how they rock this month. With obviously they've got Sarr gone, Basuma gone, Son has gone, Van der Ven and Maddison are not yet to return. I think Romero got injured as well. So
Van der Ven was on the bench for the cup game, so he's back soon.
He's actually on the bench. Okay, cool. So he should be Liverpool still, which kind of offsets the Romero situation. But again, Davies got injured, I think, in the most recent game. But yeah, Spurs look good, man. That's that. If they can get their reinforcements in and be like 5 points off, they can make it interesting, Steve.
Yeah, doing a hell of a job. I'm interested to see. I'm always a fan of like a player who people are generally down on, a manager having faith in them and trying to make something of them, because I love the 180 everybody has to end up to. You know what? I actually thought he was pretty decent, you know. Check your opinions a few months back.
I was saying that on the other day in one of our chats, it's very easy to, like, we're talking about Reece James today, and
right.
Because what Trent was doing was special, that people are kind of like in touch with like chat Duncan on Reece James. I'm like, it's easy to like rub out Reece James when he's not playing because of injury, not because he's been poor and he got dropped. Because they're both playing and both playing at a high level. It was a debate in the chat whether the debate is accurate, whether it should be Reece, whether it should be Trent. I was initially in the Trent camp because I think Trent does things that are like beyond the norm.
Yeah,
like
normal. Yeah.
If a man says Reece James, it's not like a ridiculous opinion. And now people talk about Reece James like he's like nobody because he's injured and he's out of mind. I think that's poor analysis. So I think it's interesting to see the takes of people when the player ain't playing well, like Cancelo. That was a good one. People rubbing him out, and then he was like one of the best players in the Premier League. So
yeah, cool. Yesterday's results: Wimbledon lost 3-1 to Ipswich. Leicester beat Millwall 3-2. Coventry beat Oxford 6-2. Maidstone United beat Stevenage 1-0. Newcastle beat Sunderland 3-0 in the Tyne-Wear derby. Brighton beat Stoke 4-2. Norwich drew 1-1 with Bristol Rovers. Southampton beat Walsall 4-0. Watford beat Chesterfield 2-1. Blackburn beat Cambridge United 5-2. Sheffield United won 4-0, maybe like their third win of the season. Bournemouth beat QPR 3-2. They came back from being 2-0 down. Plymouth 3-1 win against Sutton United. Newport drew 1-1 with Eastleigh. Hull drew 1-1 with Birmingham, freshly rid of Wayne Rooney. Sheffield Wednesday beat Cardiff 4-0. Villa beat Middlesbrough 1-0. Swansea beat Morecambe 2-0. And Chelsea beat Preston 4-0. Broja, Thiago Silva, Raheem Sterling and Enzo Fernandez. So they're through to the next round. And then taking a quick look at today, Luton and Bolton drew 0-0. Wrexham beat Shrewsbury 1-0. West Ham drew 1-1 with Bristol City. West Brom 1-4-1 against Aldershot. Leeds beat Peterborough 3-0. Nottingham Forest drew 2-2 with Blackpool. Morgan Gibbs-White scored a really good goal. Man City beat Huddersfield 5-0. Apparently Foden was playing really well today. And we see Liverpool beat Arsenal 2-0. I did want to ask you guys about Foden this season. So I feel like he's a player who his ratings have been so interesting because he's only 23, 24, right? So I feel like when he was really young, he was shot right into the top of debates based on how talented he was. And he's kind of been able to like maintain that level for quite a few seasons. But I feel like in the last year, 18 months, people have started to give him a more critical eye, feeling that he's potentially overrated in comparison to what his peers have achieved and the expectations of his peers. But I think he's actually responded in kind this season. I think what's really helped has been the absence of Kevin De Bruyne, and where City have needed goals in the absence of Erling Haaland, he's also kind of stepped up in that regard. So I just kind of wanted to go around this week's panel and just get your thoughts on Phil Foden as a player right now? So not how he's been rated in the past. Where you stand with Phil Foden as a player and his reputation as of today. Start with you, just
special player.
Yeah,
Blatantly special player, like technically superb. And he's got a bit of athleticism about him. He's got a bit of strength. He's got tenacity. He can burst in terms of his first 5 yards. Great ball striker in terms of his finishing. And I think he does things out of the ordinary as well. So in terms of that's why I understand the Foden debate, because I think it's a good debate to have where we actually look at players and how they perform, and do we just give ratings to players if they're not performing because they play in a super sick team and they can afford to be off the ball for 5 games, and then we pretend that they're amazing because they scored 1 game. So I think that was a fair comparison, especially when Arsenal fans were saying, "Oh, Foden keeps getting pushed above Saka, but our guy's consistently performing and is talented." And I think that's a very, very fair discussion. But what I don't like is it descends to a point where people are now trying to pretend that this guy is not a special footballer. And that is where I just think it's ridiculous. A guy could be off form, a guy could be inconsistent, but doesn't mean he's not special. He's clearly a special player. And what Pep kind of has annoyed me with him playing out wide and stuff. But in recent weeks, we've seen him play in midfield, and we've seen the performance level improve. He played in midfield today, obviously inferior opposition, but you just see the guile that he has and ingenuity that he has, and the speed of decision making and his quality. That he's been able to score goals. So I think he's a special player, and I really do hope that he managed to kind of blossom to the player he could be, because he should be the best
player. So is he the player he could be now? Or let's say if you were to think of where Foden could be, and that's 10 out of 10, what would you say the current Foden is out of 10?
In terms of, as a player, for me, he's an 8.5 out of 10. But in terms of what he can be in terms of his potential, I don't think he's near it. I think he could be like Rooney-esque, that type of player where this is the best player in the country, undisputed. We're not, even with the likes of Gerrard and Lampard and all these Rio, Terry, this is the best player in the country, best player we've ever seen. That is the level of talent that what Bellingham, see how Bellingham is revered? Foden's a better footballer than Bellingham.
Right.
Is comfortably. Do you know what I'm saying? So he should see the swagger that we see like Maddison play and Odegaard play and De Bruyne play. I'm not sure that comes with you being the undisputed guy in the team and your teammates look to you, the coaches look to you in terms of how the team plays. So it might be a bit of that. But yeah, that is where that's where Foden should be, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because he's always had that. He's always played with superstars, right? So he's never had that kind of opportunity to be the player that people are looking at to solve problems. Like he's typically there as a kind of garnish to the kind of the KDBs of this world, the Haalands of this world. You'd say Bernardo Silva has more responsibility in the team than he does. So I think it has kind of protected him in terms of having all that scrutiny in terms of if a team wins or loses, but it also hasn't really allowed him to flex his muscles fully. It's like he hasn't been given that opportunity to fully see what he can do. And if we wanted to set up and put a team together that was actually built around getting the best out of Phil Foden, what would that look like? So I'm not actually surprised when he tends to have a period like this where KDB, who's usually the leader and usually the one who's expected to be decisive, is out of the team, and they look around and like, on the pitch right now, who is talented enough to help us solve the problems that we have? Nunez's transfer hasn't gone well. Kovacic's transfer hasn't gone well. I agree with you, Disu. Bernardo Silva can be passive a lot of the time, but Foden's a guy who's also always proven he can score goals. He can be decisive in a game against the run-of-the-mill opposition and also the games against the big teams too. So I'll be interested to see how his season pans out now KDB's coming back into the team. Does he kind of take a back seat again? Or is he able to maintain some level of good?
I'm not gonna lie, KDB is so peak, fam. Like came on instantly, it's
Bro,
that's just peak, fam. Instant chaos, bro. Once he gets into that, did I see that right channel? Yeah. Once they slip him that pass down to the byline,
Cash Money,
panic stations.
Every time Cash Money,
bro. It's like he knows where everybody is, so he's not just firing it into the mixer. Because remember 2016 Man United, where we always used to have all the play on the left, and then the ball gets spread out to Valencia, and he'll have all the time in the world, and you couldn't find anybody. So it was not as easy as to just smack it in the mixer. He always finds a quality pass. So yeah, man.
I think one thing I'd say about Foden is, and I think the reason why a lot of people maybe don't view him as positively as others, is because a lot of people project on Foden what they want him to be rather than what he is. So for some people, Foden's a number 8, right? So they're like, oh, they'll always be disappointed by Foden because maybe he's not incisive enough on the ball, or doesn't play reverse passes as much as some other players, or doesn't create as much as other players. So that, he doesn't do all of those things, but they ignore the things he does do. And ultimately, I think Foden, for me, the way I view Foden is Foden's an attacker. I think Foden's a player who's played for much of his career for City as a wide attacker. And I judge him off that basis, that like, what is he doing versus other wide attackers? I looked at his numbers just now, actually, in terms of like all comps for the last 3 or 4 seasons. So the 2021 season, the season where City won the league, the year after we'd won it, he gets 16 goals in 50 games. The season after that, he gets 14 goals in 45 games. The season after that, he gets 15 goals in 48 games. And now he's on 11 and 30 this season. So every chance he gets more than the 16 in his best, he's got so far in his best season. So compared to other wide forwards, those are really, really impressive numbers. So you can talk about maybe the importance of some of those goals, or maybe is he as decisive as other players. But this is a player that in his young career so far, for the past 4 or 5 seasons, has posted double figures consistently, quite comfortably posted double figures. Assists probably look quite healthy as well in terms of his numbers. So for me, I think a lot of the underrating of this player is maybe not looking at what he is and what he does do really, really well. It's trying to pick bones at the things he doesn't do that well, and trying to maybe say, oh, he should be this player, he should be a number 8, he should be a number 10 because of what he does or what he can do. So I think for me, Foden's a really, really talented player. I do think he kind of needs to nail down the position because he does get moved around a lot. So he's played as a false 9 at times, as a left winger, as a right winger. I'd be interested to know what he thinks he is. Like, is Foden in his mind a left winger? Is he a right winger? Is he like kind of a player that he wants to play both sides? Does he see himself as an 8 at some point? Because I think it would be nice just for him to play in one position consistently, and we know that that's Foden's position. So when he plays for City, most weeks we're going to see him on the left, for example. We're going to see him on the right, just because I think that kind of consistency in terms of position will help him have a more clear identity as well. So I'm a huge fan of his. I think he's as talented as any English player we have at the moment in terms of the very best. He's very much up there. And I think another thing I would say is, and I think this is something, I'm not having a dig at Arsenal fans when I say this, I think rival football fans do this all the time, right? Is when you think your player is as good as someone else, right? So Saka and Foden is close. So people think it's close. I personally am a Foden man. I think Foden's a bit better, but I can understand why you'd think Saka is better, right? I don't think it's an egregious shout to say Saka's better than Phil Foden. But what football fans do in this era, and I think it's really weird, is when a player gets compared to their favorite player or a player on their team, they do these really petty things of trying to rub out the other player. So they start this agenda and this narrative about this player. So the narrative that some Arsenal fans have started, not all of them, but some Arsenal fans have started, is that, oh, Foden scores the 5th goal in a 5-0 win, never scores decisive goals, never scores important goals. But I remember Foden in the season we were chasing City for the league, scoring quite a few really important goals. He scored one at Everton that season. He scored one at Sheffield United that season. Just on top of my head, these are goals that come to my mind. So we do it as well sometimes. Liverpool fans have done it with Reece James, which Disu just spoke about, where Trent, obviously, I think Trent's better, but I don't think it was egregious 2 years ago to think Reece James was better. Again, I've always thought Trent was better, but I think we need to understand that it's okay for your player who you think is better to be compared to another player who's of, maybe not like a million miles away from that player. Like, it's okay to just accept that and accept that player's a good player too, rather than trying to rub out the other player and trying to be petty about it, because football fans do it all the time and it's proper childish.
Fair. Koogs, was there anything you wanted to add to the conversation?
Nah, I don't think so. And I think it's again like the age thing that I mentioned before, right? Is expecting, really consistent performances from young players week in, week out, is a very difficult thing to do, right? And I think if you look at the way Pep's managed Foden's career, he's not necessarily he's played consistent minutes, but it's not necessarily always in the team. Sometimes he's on the bench. Sometimes, he's not in the squad. Sometimes he's starting this and the other. And then, to Mike's point, he's playing on the left. He's playing on the right. He's playing in midfield. And I don't think the positional versatility is necessarily a problem. Like, you look at some of the top players that we've seen. They call Foden the Stockport Iniesta and stuff. But you look at Iniesta, he played on the left. He played on the right. He played in 10. He played in midfield as an 8 as well. David Silva, very similar, played on the flanks, played in midfield. It's not necessarily bad. It probably shows that your technical quality allows you and your intelligence allows you to play multiple positions. But when you're a young player, you're getting used to the tactical aspects of different positions. It can, sometimes you're overthinking a certain pass, this and the other. And my, issue is that you know, people didn't necessarily acknowledge the games where Foden wasn't playing well. That doesn't mean, as Disu said, that you need to start rubbing him out. Mike said you need to start, you know, poking holes in it. What I didn't like was that, you know, people looked at talent and then just immediately assumed that he was the man, you know, and actually, you know, he kind of wasn't the man yet. And I think this season he's really taken that responsibility of being, you know, basically City's creative hub alongside Rodri, alongside Bernardo in KDB's absence. And I think he's warming, you know, like you watching him and it's more than a couple moments in a match where, you know, he does a nice pirouette. It's like now he's trying to kill you kind of thing. And he's 23 now, I think. And so this is now the time where you actually expect him to maybe hit that level of, you know, consistency, that 2 games in 3 games in 4, you're going to really give us like an 8 out of 10, a 9 out of 10 kind of thing. So, you know, I think he's doing really well this season.
Fair. That's I think a nice segue into a chat about a conversation we discuss all the time as football fans, and one that I feel like we struggle to actually define. And so we're having this conversation, and it's a conversation about world class. What defines a world class player? My guy's world class. That guy isn't. So what I want us to, I guess, firstly do is try and, from our different perspective, discuss how we define world class, and then have a conversation about in the Premier League who are the current world class players. So I'll start with you, Dr. Mike. When you think about the comment world class, or you use that as a description for a player, how do you come to a conclusion of if a player is world class or not?
I think there's a particular quality relative to that player's position and expectations. For example, for a centre-back in a modern era, a world-class qualities would be being good in 1v1 duels, being quick on the turn, being good on the ball, being strong in the air. Those sorts of things would be things I would look at. So there are traits in the position, but also a performance level that's important as well. So I think for me, a world-class player is one that performs consistently well at a top level. So they've played at the top level, maybe in the Premier League, they played in top European competitions, internationally, and consistently for a period of time, you know, longer than 2 years, they've shown that they know what it looks like. And they've shown us consistently what it looks like. You know, so I think that's what it is to be a world-class player. Having these particular attributes relative to what's required in your position, and then showing that on the top stage year in, year out.
Cool. Dan Koogs, when you think about world-class, what do you look for?
It's consistent, high, top level performances for me. I think it's that simple. You know, you watch players, you know they're world class because they do special things on the pitch that other players don't do, and they do it often, you know, way more often than other players. So, you know, I think if you look at players now, Mbappe, we don't have to question whether this guy's world class or not, because when you watch him, he's done it on, and they also do it on the big stages in the biggest moments as well. They do it against top teams, they do it against small teams, they do it, you know, on a consistent basis, and they do it over a stretch of time. So, you know, you get certain players, they have a really, really strong year, and you're like, oh, what is this guy world class? But in the next season, then it's not so strong. You get what I'm saying? And so it's like, maybe you're not that guy. You see players, they have a really, really strong patch within a season. Okay, can you maintain this over the course of the whole season? They can't. Okay, so fine, it's just a bit of a purple patch. So for me,
question, you mentioned season. So let's say a player starts this season and they're not world class in your eyes. How long do they have to play at a world class level for you to say this player is now world class?
It depends on the level they're playing at for me, right? So, you know, if you are doing a Luis Suarez season, for instance, yeah, where you're doing an absolute madness, flicking over players' heads, scoring at a ridiculous rate like Erling Haaland or whatnot, right? I would say, yeah, I think this guy could be world class. Then if they do it the season after, I'll then probably rubber stamp it. Do you get what I'm saying? Because I think we've seen a lot of the time where a player has an amazing season and they're not able to replicate it again for the rest of the year, for the rest of their career, sorry. So for me, it's about the level of performance and then the consistency of that level of performance is what makes you world class.
Fair. And how about you, Disu?
Sorry, let's have a young munch. You get me? I think world class, yeah. I think world class is has to be, in my opinion, has to be a particular standard, almost like an accreditation. Like, I think you could play at a high level for a number of years and you could still not be world class because of your level is high, but you don't have a certain level of ability, excellency.
Je ne sais quoi.
Eliteness, yeah.
Like a Michelin star, yeah?
Yeah, like, because like the names that I've seen given to world class, I'm like, this is nasty work. You know what I'm saying? It's nasty work. But so it's interesting because when we're having a discussion in our Touchdown Fracas group chat, shout out Lewis and Leroy from Touchy Gooners, they believe that they see it in a way like most industries see it. If you're in the top percentile of your industry, whether you're a chef, whether you are a cosmetic surgeon, whether you're an accountant, so on and so forth, if you're not in the top percentage, you are world class, which makes sense. But I think sports, I think it has to be a bit more bespoke, because what if like bare man, the whole thing is mid, and because you are not as mid as other people, you're now pushing to the world class category. I feel like there has to be some form of borders. There has to be border force on that. So for me, and I think it's Dan Soft that coined this a long time ago. There has to be a certain level of stardust as well around you, like and I like I'm not sure if it was Dan or Mike who said it, like, you kind of know it when you see it. So I think although I don't believe you need to perform at 3-4 years to be known as world class. I think most cases it will come with that, but like Saliba, what we're gonna wait until 2025 to call him world class for him to play exactly the same way he's playing in 2023.
Yeah, I think there are attributes that push you. If you have certain attributes,
Saliba has the most obvious, evident stardust.
That was an example. That's a good example. This is exactly the name that I was going to say. Right, it's like for me, I saw Saliba's level of performance last season, right, and I was like, this guy is proper. You know, team of the season, all of this stuff, right. And the only thing for me then is like, can you then come into this season and still perform at that level, and you know, show that it's not just a one-off season, this, that, and the other, right? So, and I think he's done that. So, if someone says, "Oh, is Saliba world class?" I'll say, "Yeah, I think he is," because I look at this, I look at him, and I look how he plays against the top-class strikers and attackers that he's played against, and he performs, you know, and it's so consistent, the level as well. It's like week to week to week. It's rare you see Saliba drop a stinker. Do you get what I'm saying? So, you know, I think, yeah, he's stamped. And then another example is someone like Heung-min Son, right? So it'd be interesting to whether you guys think this guy is a world-class winger or not. Because for me, I think he has world-class aspects of his play in terms of his finishing, but in terms of overall game, I don't think Son is world-class.
Yeah, for me, in the Premier League, there's like just about 10 world-class players. I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on this. So I have to get the table up. And it's actually mad that Aston Villa are currently second. It's totally insane. But yeah. I think Liverpool have 4 world-class players, and I don't think any of them should be debatable. Alisson's probably the best keeper I've ever seen. Trent, Van Dijk, and Salah. I don't think anyone will really debate that unless they're just being a bit nuts. I don't think Villa have any. I think City, in my opinion, these are the players they have that's world-class. I think Kyle Walker. I think Rodri, Bernardo, De Bruyne, and Haaland. That's 5 of them, in my opinion. I think Arsenal's sole world-class player is Saliba. I don't think Tottenham have one. I don't think West Ham have one. Brighton don't have one. Man United, Newcastle don't have one. I think Chelsea have 2 in Thiago Silva and Reece James. I don't think anybody else is world-class. And yeah, I don't think there's any other world-class players in the rest of the Premier League, in my opinion. I think those are the players, in my opinion, that have shown a elite level of ability and performance. And they have that stardust, obviously, relative to the position, because it's quite hard to have stardust as a centre-back and a DM, if that makes sense. But I think those are the world-class players. And if you look at those players, I think that should kind of be the barometer. I think there's some other players in the league that I think, in my opinion, I think if Maddison keeps this up, goes to the Champions League, and does that, nobody can say otherwise. I think Saka's another one, Odegaard. I think there's players that show that they're not on the cusp potential of being in that conversation. But for me, is them, man. And if man saying they're not sure if Bernardo's world class,
I've seen performance in Champions League last season.
Like, it's not even just it. Like, bro has completely and utterly dunked on midfields, and it's also his ability level. That level of ball retention is just phenomenal. There's no amount of game state, speed of game, like that he can't adapt to. And for me, I see Bernardo as a midfielder, not as a wide player. As a midfielder, how many midfielders in the middle third that could win the ball back, pass, dribble, retention, energy, contract to Bernardo Silva in the world?
And I think to Dan's point as well, he's shown at decisive moments in the season, he can rise it and he can be like the best player on the pitch when there's like top players in the pitch. I remember his performance against Bayern Munich, for example, for City in Champions League. Like there's so many moments where he's just
the home game, crazy.
The home game, like just proper, like there's like top players on the pitch and he's standing out and he's looking at the best player on the pitch in moments. Like he's a top player, I think, man. World class for me.
Yeah, that's interesting. For me, I think it is about reaching her. That's a comment from Toad in the chat. It is about reaching a certain level of play. So there's no limit in terms of the actual number of players. So I kind of use the example that probably like a decade ago we had the likes of Aguero, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Luis Suarez, Lewandowski, Radamel Falcao, Benzema. If you want to put, you had a bunch of world-class Cavani. You had a bunch of world-class strikers all running around. So I'm talking about 5+. And I'll be very happy to put them all in that world-class bracket based on how good they were. But if you then ask me to have that conversation today, I'm probably only putting Haaland in that conversation.
Kane.
So for me, and Harry Kane, obviously. So it's like a certain level of quality. Huh?
Mbappe.
He's a wide forward. He's a
striker, really.
He's a striker. He needs to stop.
He doesn't occupy the same.
He's cosplaying as a wide man,
fam. So for me, it's just about getting to a certain level. But then I feel like in that definition that I've provided, it's not clear. Like, so it's very like intrinsic to me. So it's what I think it looks like. And it's hard to like take that definition and go into a room and be like, this player is world class, this player isn't world class. I think we continue to try and search for something that then can be, you know, a barometer. That
why don't we just create our own board and we just accredit it? Like we send us your tapes, yeah. We look at the numbers.
Yeah,
we'll give you the accreditation. You
look at the numbers and look at the tapes.
Maybe you can wear gold socks or something, or you have a little gold badge or something, or your number to know. Okay, cool. Let man know that man's world class. He get me. Like my
I definitely think this dude's right though. Like in terms of that Stardust, right? Because for me, when someone's world class, you actually like you just know. Do you know what I'm saying? I think there's certain players. I'm an iron. They're probably just not. Do you get what I'm saying? If it's because I think if you go through the players that you watched, you know, you can look Thierry Henry, your Ruud van Nistelrooy in his pomp, your Paul Scholes in his pomp, you know, your Steven Gerrards and all of this stuff. You just know. Do you get what I'm saying? Because they do it. Like, and I think, you know, a lot of the time football is actually quite a simple sport. And when you watch it and you see the quality, it jumps out at you. Do you get what I'm saying? So I think a lot of the time,
Koogs, because then you get certain players like if there's a narrative against them, then it becomes more fancy.
Yeah, that's fair.
For example, like if we take Raheem Sterling, for example, people have not wanted to give Raheem Sterling his dues no matter what he did. Even though he was a star boy from QPR days, that's why Liverpool got him. He was instantly a star boy at 17, 18. Key for Liverpool. Goes to City, delivers consistently, putting up goals, putting up assists. He transforms his game from a flying winger to somebody who can get goals on a consistent basis. And people will actually look at you like you're crazy for calling him world class. People will be sooner like if Matoma goes and scores 6 goals, they'll be sooner likely to call Matoma world class than somebody like Raheem Sterling. So sometimes the issue is obviously no system foolproof, but you get certain players that if the narrative against them is strong enough, like i.e. Mesut Ozil, i.e. Paul Pogba, blatantly world-class players, right? Their country recognizes them, international competitions, everywhere the people they play against recognizes them, on the continent recognizes them, but in the country that they reside in, UK, Ozil was not seen as a world-class player. Pogba was not seen as a world-class player, even though like with them it's obvious. So it's quite an interesting one. I feel like because we don't get enough objective analysis from, and this is something I want to talk about with you guys actually. I noticed that there's certain players that I'm not sure if it's commentators like or they relate to, I don't know what the term is, yeah. So 2 players could do the same action, right? So for example, I saw it today with Declan Rice, yeah, who I think had a good game. So there's times where I've seen I saw Jones get the ball in the corner, it's tight, he wriggled out, passed it backwards. Come. Declan Rice did it, and the commentator said, that's brilliant from Declan Rice there. Whether it's brilliant or not, it's not even a discussion because that's cool. It's the fact that the commentator made a note of it. And I noticed that when watching Chelsea the previous week with Conor Gallagher, all his actions were re-emphasized by the commentators, and that impacts the way people who are watching the game view the game. Do you get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Whereas, yeah, so like for example, like Rashford is a good example. I can't remember who he played recently. Rashford went on a good dribble, took on a couple of players. The financial didn't quite go off. Nothing was said. And then I think it might have been like Garnacho or somebody else who did something, or maybe it might have been Elanga who did something similar to Rashford, but not of as good quality. It was like, this is why he's such a dangerous player. And it impacts the way fans look at the game, bro. And that is what's quite nasty. So the scary thing about football is that there's not enough objective analysis. And so when you have that, it can really impact how people view a footballer.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I agree, and I think you say people know what it looks like. I think the world-class conversation is one that there's no consensus on. People have some people say, a team of aliens came to play. The guys who make the Earth team, that's world-class. So that's like, 11 players? So I think it's one thing that within yourself, you probably know what it looks like, but once you start to have those conversations, and then people tend to have a bias towards their players. You watch your players a lot more. You watch the players in your country a lot more. When you're watching players in Europe, a good two-legged tie in Europe can take your game to the stratosphere. You guys will kind of remember when we used to watch Champions League back in school. A guy has a good game the evening before, comes into school. Everyone's saying, that's who I am on the pitch,
Yeah.
I'm Kaka, So it's fascinating. It's something that I find really...
Do you know what? That made me start going a bit Brexit, because I remember what it was specifically, yeah?
Yeah.
I think it was on it was either on Twitter or just with the man that kicking ball, where somebody said that Marco Royce is better than Gareth Bell. And it was just before Gareth Bell started moving very nuts. I was like, basically what? No. It's like, how many games you've watched this year? No, you're not deep in Marco Royce. Don't say Marco Royce isn't a good footballer, but and this is why I was there's certain midfielders I've dunked on, because I'm like, once we get to see them up close and personal, i.e. Thiago Alcantara, once we got to see him up and personal every week, and man was drowning, pleading for mercy from everybody, man's assessment of him changed. Whereas before, if we were to ask who the top players in, who the top midfielders, everybody's like, Thiago, because we saw a couple Champions League games and a couple highlights on Eurofoot.com. So I think it's very difficult for us to speak with base about other players because you're just doing it based off rep. That's what you're really doing it.
Question for you guys, based on our discussion earlier, are there any players who are on the cusp currently that you think, if they maybe performed to a particular level this season, showed that stardust again, maybe this time next year we're recording this podcast and we're saying, that guy's world class? Because I think a player I have in my mind is maybe someone like Ødegaard, who I think today actually was, especially in the first half, quite comfortably the best player on the pitch. And I think in the last few weeks, actually, Arsenal have been really, really poor, but he's often been a really, really good performer for us, a really strong performer. And I think he's got a particular level of stardust, a particular quality, I think, that not many other players in his position have. I'm not saying he's like the best player ever in that position, but I'm saying he does a few things in that position where I think that's what it looks like. Are there any other players that you think are on the cusp of being world class?
None come to my mind off the top. I think technically Ødegaard is like a fantastic watch. I think the standard bearer for that position, obviously, or that part of the pitch is obviously KDB. And in my mind, I immediately think if KDB had equivalent performances for City in those same games, City are winning those games. KDB's top performances, decisive performances,
more decisive,
lead to his team winning games. The biggest games, the smallest games, and that can be with a Haaland in the team. Without a Haaland, he'll create the chances for guys to score. When those guys can't score, he'll score the chances.
Is that fair though?
He'll score the chances himself. It's not. I don't think it's necessarily about me trying to be fair or unfair. It's just the level. I just think it's just the level. I think Ødegaard started this season really poorly. For me, I think he was quite anonymous for quite a bit. He was
shocking for the first 15 games.
So for me, I think he needs to do a lot more. I think if he kept up the form that he had last season, which was him also scoring quite a fair chunk of goals too, we're probably having a different conversation. But the goals aren't quite there. He's operating in a different part of the pitch now, and his job is more so to kind of get the ball into the final third, feed the attackers. Do I have a different opinion if the guys are maybe scoring the chances that he's putting on them or the plate for them? I don't necessarily think so. I just don't think he's been that good this season, to be honest.
Do you not think so? My point with Ødegaard is I think he has the stardust that we would look for in the top.
I think he has the quality, yeah. I don't think he has the performances, though, not this season.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
fair. That's fair.
there's certain players that come to mind in the Premier League. Saka, I think, is the obvious one. For me, Maddison. I think, to me, Maddison, the only reason I just don't think he's got enough stripes yet. And I think stripes, unfortunately, is a part of being world class. You actually have to have the stripes. I don't doubt might put Maddison in any type of environment he's going to perform. So I think Maddison's one is just a matter of time.
What's
Especially
stripes? Playing in the Champions League? Is it like
playing in the Champions League. He's been kicking ball for Leicester. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. That's why they were telling me stuff that weren't true because nobody cares.
Right.
Now he's something that people care about. So then it'll get to a point where it's undeniable, if that makes sense. I think Saka's the obvious one, of course. I think Enzo Fernandez is one. I think he's a brilliant footballer. So and Phil Foden, again, another brilliant footballer. So those are the players. Oh, and Livramento. I think Livramento is nuts.
There's a few players I think they have ability, and it's just about whether or not we actually see their performances. So when you look at some of the Chelsea players, I think there's a lot of talented players in that squad. So one of Disu's guys, Enzo Fernandez, this, that, and the other. I think he has a lot of technical quality. And if you're able to marry that quality with the application, that talent allows you to reach, basically, is then you can be brought into that bracket, to be honest. So I think Odegaard's a good one. I think Maddison is also another good one. I think you've mentioned Saka. I think someone like Julian Alvarez, right, for Man City. I think if he was at another team as the main guy, I think is also very talented. That could potentially be in that bracket as well. So yeah,
cool, fair. All right, guys, let's go to the award section for this week. You guys should know the drill by now. If you don't, well, you'll get to know. Let's start with the star of this weekend. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Mike. Just watch your team snatch one at the Emirates. Who's your star of the FA Cup weekend?
With the star of the FA Cup weekend, I'm going to go with Ibu Konate. And I think I'm a huge fan of this player. I think he's another player that fitness has probably let him down in terms of how people rate him. He's often, unfortunately struggled with a few niggles. But when it comes to meat and veg defending, when it comes to winning your duels, winning your battles, can you dominate your attacker? He does that. I think he showed that against Martinelli at Anfield. I think, again, in this game, down that side, he was just so dominant. And I think he's not as silky as Saliba. He doesn't play through he actually can play through the lines. I think a lot of times in the first half, he played through the lines quite well. He's a bit awkward on the ball. But when it comes to the basics of defending, winning your aerial duels, winning your battles, he does that so well. And I think for him, the challenge for him now is staying fit, because when he's fit, he's often just such a strong performer for us. Always wins his battles, always wins his duels. So yeah, he's going to be my star of the weekend.
Nice one. Koogs, who's your star of the weekend?
I think probably Phil Foden, to be honest. I thought he had a top game today. I think he got a couple goals as well. So yeah, I think he was pretty good in what I saw. I saw like half the game. So
cool, yeah. Disu, who's your star of the weekend?
I think I'm gonna go Trent.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing needs to be said. See what he's got, bro. At one point in the game, he got the ball in his own 6-yard box, ran across 6-yard box, and played a perfect 50-yard left foot pass to Diaz. The things he's doing on the pitch are things you can only do on FIFA. Like, that's what people do on Ultimate Team. Like, yeah, he's nuts still.
Cool. I'll stick with you, Disu. Who have you got under surveillance?
Oh, under surveillance. This is an interesting one. There's a few contenders still. But I think I'm gonna say Dan Koogs, German Dan, Yemi, Lou Bob 91, Leo aka Education,
right,
and the whole Touchy Gooners, Mafioso. Yeah, you guys are under surveillance from the DEA. We are watching. We saw how you are chatting about this player and that player, this team. Man, we're talking about different modules. This is a flipping science degree.
Tactical layers.
Yeah,
all of this nonsense.
They are under surveillance. No amount of Patreon PR is going to shift the surveillance. We are watching. We are everywhere.
Fair. Dan Koogs, who have you got under surveillance, sir?
Well, I don't even know, man. I got. I don't even know, man. I got the whole Arsenal attack on surveillance right now, man.
Fair.
That's a fair one.
That's a fair one. And
beat them, boys.
I hear it. And Dr. Mike, who have you got under surveillance currently?
I'm gonna say Bukayo Saka, and before I need to land on this one.
I like
A
that.
lot of Arsenal fans, when it comes to me, they get emotional. So they're gonna quote you this podcast, Dr. Mike this, Dr. Mike that. Get very emotional. Calm down.
They're gonna call you Dr. Doolittle, bro. They're not gonna call you that.
Yeah, they love that one. 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 You know, Dr. Mike. This is anyway. I think Bukayo Saka is quite clearly a top player, a very talented player. I think, unfortunately, last season, some Arsenal fans involved him in conversations he shouldn't have been in. And I think, ultimately, he's a good player. Obviously, a very good player. For England, I'll start him in the World Cup or Euros, whatever it is this summer that's going to happen. Really good player. But I think maybe the level that some Arsenal fans put him on and the pedestal he was put on by some Arsenal fans was excessive, right? So we're talking, again, about a very good player, one I rate, one I'm a big fan of, God's son, all of that good stuff. Niger boy, all of that, fantastic, great, amazing, fantastic. We all love it. But there were some Arsenal fans that got way too carried away with him. And I think what we're seeing this season is quite clearly a very good player, again, still showing some moments of quality, but maybe not quite as good as some Arsenal fans believed. Again, Arsenal fans, please don't cry. I think he's a very good player, but maybe not what some of you guys think he is in terms of being this like unbelievable, untouchable world-class player.
Cool, fair. And let's do the final one, Saudi bound.
Who is people under surveillance, Morayo?
Huh? I haven't got anybody under surveillance this week, actually. Yeah, I think Arsenal were watching Arteta. Arteta is under surveillance, actually, because I think he's somebody that I thought had done really well last season. He's made moves which have weakened the side, I think, overall. Arsenal were a really good watch last season, like, rivalry aside, just for the neutral, put on an Arsenal game, especially first half of the season. If you want to watch a team play good football, they've been a lot harder to watch. They won a few close games at the start of the season, you know, and people are like, we're just warming. Watch when the players kind of get gel and the new players and whatnot, and obviously injuries, whatnot. But now Arteta, it's like some adversity now. How are you going to react? What solutions are you going to bring in? It's a Harvard-style rebuild, apparently. So I wanna see if he's gonna earn his stripes. And then Saudi bound, Dan Koogs. Who's Saudi bound for you, sir?
Hey, send Havertz there, man.
Fair enough. Disu, Saudi bound.
There's a couple candidates still. The journalist who asked Ange Postecoglou about if he pictures himself winning trophies, and he got absolutely blammed to dust. Yeah, you're Saudi bound. Jordan Henderson, sorry, brother. No matter talking you're gonna do, you sign that contract, brother. You're Saudi bound. You stay there. You ain't going nowhere. You're washed, son. Yeah, you're washed. And another player who I do think is actually Saudi bound is it was an Arsenal player. I was gonna say Havertz. Yeah, come on, man. Come on, man. It's getting ridiculous now. It's actually
really getting ridiculous.
No,
and Dr. Mike, who do you have a Saudi bound?
Yeah, I'm gonna go have it. Someone tweeted something funny where it's like when he misses a chance, he doesn't even pretend to be frustrated. Like there's no like emotion. Like he doesn't even look up to the skies and do that fake prayer thing. He's just like, I missed a chance. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, BAU, meat and veg finishing. Cool. So it seems like Havertz is going to be on a first-class trip to get himself 50 lashes and 500k a week. Let's finish up with some listeners' questions. We've got quite a few. Josh Benanot, shout out Josh. He's based in the US, long-term listener. Can this Arsenal team afford to go another season without a trophy?
Yeah, it depends on the nature of how you end trophyless, right? Like, I don't think there's a divine right to win a trophy. I think if you look at the Liverpool team, right, and I think part of the reason why they've stuck with Klopp for a long time is because he's showing that he's elite every time. You know, even though you get picked to the post at the end of the season, they're there or thereabouts. And I think this season we need to show that we can go closer. I think we went up to like maybe the last 7-ish games, and then after 7 games to go, I think, you know, the the tide had turned and we knew City were going to win the title. And I think it needs to go further than that. And also we need to have a deep cup run in the Champions League. If you do that and City pick to the post in the last couple of games, or you get knocked out by Real Madrid, I don't think, you now start to need to throw the bath out with the bath water or whatever it is,
Baby out with the bath.
Baby with a bath water, yeah. So
yeah, you probably want to get that one right.
It just depends on the nature of how you go trophyless personally. But yeah, if we like go out for a whimper, then boy, I think questions are valid.
Go.
I would agree with Dan. I think there is a process that you look at as a fan, and like if Arsenal win the season trophyless, but they've maybe the second half of the season they have a really strong push for the league. Champions League, they're a bit unlucky. They lose to Real Madrid in this quarterfinal or something. But again, you can see a process where in the future, with a couple of tweaks, they can push further. Then absolutely, I think it's okay to win the season trophyless. What I would say is Arsenal have spent lots of money, and I think the aim for Arsenal fans this season, especially people like Dan who were speaking quite spicy in the summer, wasn't just to the season to peter out without a trophy. The aim was to put something on the table this season. I think this season was Declan Rice is the final piece. We had this season last season where we pushed. Our players performed really, really well. We had this kind of midfielder, Declan Rice. We had a utility player in Havertz, and we push and try and win something big. So I think for Arsenal fans, yes, there is a process you can point to that would be important for Arsenal fans to end the season. So it wouldn't be a disaster if you made a good push for the league, maybe lost out to a better team in the Champions League. That process is important. But I do also think that the summer Arsenal had last summer was a summer of a team trying to win something big. It was a summer that we maybe, in comparison to our summer in 2018, where we signed Alisson, Fabinho, and Keita comes in, the idea that summer wasn't to be spirited losers. The idea was we're going to win something big. And I think that's ultimately the expectation for Arsenal. What I would say, and I think a lot of Arsenal fans think I hate them, I don't. Well, actually, I do. I hate Arsenal. Let's be clear. I hate Arsenal. But I think what I would say is, I think in the Champions League, I look at the quality of teams in that competition. I look at City, obviously what it is, best team in the world. I think Bayern Munich have Harry Kane, who's a world-class player, can decide any game. Real Madrid as well, obviously heritage, good team. I think Arsenal, are in the mix for that competition. And I think Arsenal in that competition have actually been shown a lot of they haven't been shown the respect they've been shown in the Premier League yet. And I think it might take a while for teams in Europe to actually understand that Arsenal can cause you problems. So there's every chance Arsenal do really, really well in that competition. So yeah, let's see. I think for me, Arsenal, again, the summer they had last summer was to win. Was to win now. But the process is important, and let's see how they end the season.
Fair. That question is from Tayo Technology. The Ian Technology is a 3. Shout him out, sends questions in every week. If Sancho goes to Dortmund and does well, do you sell him in the summer or see if you can reintegrate him under a potentially different manager? What do you guys think?
I think his time at United is just done now. I think I've been surprised by him actually as a player. When I watched him at Dortmund, and again, I don't think United environment's the best for any attackers or for many players in general to kind of sustain good quality performances.
Right.
But he just looks like a different player. He doesn't look to me suited for the Premier League at all. He lacks the explosiveness, I think, of a top quality forward in the Premier League. You look at the very best forwards in the Premier League. Your likes of your Haaland, your Salahs. These players have this level of intensity and desire that he doesn't quite have, I don't think. And I think in terms of the kind of the burst of pace, maybe the kind of just doesn't look like he. I think for me, he's a player that would look really good in the Spanish league, maybe in the Italian league, maybe. But when it comes to being a Premier League player, the more I've watched him, the more I've just thought I'm not too sure about you. So I think ultimately, United should just kind of cut their losses and just move on.
Sure. How about you, Disu?
Yeah, he's got a cut, man. It hasn't been pretty at all. Obviously, he's got into a situation with ETH. I do think he does possess qualities. Obviously not to the level that I initially thought, but he does have qualities. He's a very good decision maker, and his finishing is very good. So he's got attributes that you could definitely work with. I think he just got to be in the right situation, but all at the same time, he's got to get his act together. I don't know about the training and his life and all that type of stuff. That's all conjecture to me. I don't know. But from what I see on the pitch, I see somebody, and I don't usually say this about players, but there is a distinct lack of effort. Bro's shirking out of challenges and that. And I'm sorry, you're on 350 bags a week, bro. If you get hurt, you're gonna be okay. Now I'm saying how can everybody be I'm not expecting him you don't expect him to be a good defender, but just compete for the ball. Like, it's just part of kicking ball. Do you get what I'm saying? So he's got to apply himself on the pitch. And I think there is a player in there. It's not like Anthony, who's like completely devoid of any sort of positive utility as a footballer or a human being, to be honest. So I think there's a chance that Sancho does all right elsewhere.
Fair. Next question is from Mr. A. Palmer. Are Chelsea starting to show signs of improvement, and would they be significantly better had injuries not been so prevalent within their squad?
Get out of here. Get out of here. You're taking a biscuit, bro.
Injuries definitely haven't helped him. I think Nkunku's been a big loss, but then he kind of was this player before they signed him. Like, he's had a few problems with injuries in the past. So, yeah,
Are you questioning their due diligence in making him the linchpin of this side?
I think so. I think you need to, especially with the intensity of the Premier League, and we know that, especially like, for example, you have periods of the Premier League where you're playing like games every other day in a way that you wouldn't in the Premier in another league.
Right.
Like, for example, you have 7 league games in December. Given Nkunku's history record, like his injury history, sorry, like, I don't know, like, is he the guy you build everything around? Like, is Reece James the guy you make captain given his injury record? Given that we know that he's never really available, like,
right?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Right, I think that's an interesting point. I think what obviously Nkunku's injuries allowed is for them. They went and obviously got Cole Palmer, so he's established himself really well the first half of the season. Noni Madueke seemed to have come back out from the cold, and he's a player that Pochettino now trusts. So they actually have quite a lot of options, and I think as players come back, he'll once again struggle with having a really big squad. Modric needs minutes to improve. Broja needs minutes for people to determine if he's got what it takes, but so does Nico Jackson. You want to kind of get that kind of combination of Fernandes, Lavia, Caicedo working in some sort of tandem to understand how your team wants to set up. You want to plan the succession after Thiago Silva, etc., etc. But they got 1 game a week, you know? So they don't necessarily have enough games to give all the players the reps that need the reps, and they also need to get results. So it's going to be interesting to see how Pochettino balances all those kind of conflicting priorities, because also it's also a results business. And Chelsea, with the money that they've spent and the quality that they have, finishing mid-table is just not on. And for me, it's probably a snackable offence, if I'm being honest with you. Next question is from Inkstamist. Were all of Arsenal's injury time winning goals an early sign of lack of creativity and ruthlessness rather than grit or winning mentality? Thank you.
No, because I think the only one, I think when you put a team under pressure, right? Like, pressure bursts pipes. You get what I'm saying? So you only score late goals if you have them, you know, trapped in their box. You're creating chances, and eventually, you know, something goes your way because they're tired. So I think the actual issue is, if you look at the last few games, we've not had that late surge because, you know, some of the manager's substitutions, this and the other. So I look at Aston Villa game and we're losing. Then we took off Martinelli in like the 60-something minute. We didn't have another shot on goal after that, right? Similar to the West Ham. We took off Martinelli. We didn't have any like passes into the penalty box after he came off. You look at Fulham. We took off Martinelli. We didn't have another shot on goal after Martinelli comes off, right? So I look at this and I say the manager's doing certain things to make us less threatening in these scenarios when we're chasing the goal, whereas last season and earlier in the season, you know, he was making adjustments to make us more threatening. So I look at the Chelsea game where he took Jorginho off, put Rice at 6, brought Havertz on, made us more threatening. We scored a late goal. Similar to the Man City game, he made an adjustment. Partey came on, allows us to be more direct. Havertz came on Havertz went up top, instead of Nketiah, I think. And Tomiyasu came on. He made them forward runs, makes us more threatening. So I don't think it's, you know, our lack of. I think people put too much influence on mentality when actually the game is just played in your feet a lot of the time. So, you know, you need to have the weapons on the pitch. You need to have the correct setup to actually affect and destabilize a team's defense. And if you don't have that, you're not going to look that dangerous. So I think that's what it comes down to a lot of the time.
Personally, I think people just make the decision retrospectively. If you go on to win the league, it's a hallmark of champions and the champions elect, and they don't actually ever give up. if you end up not winning the league. But we were seeing in those games, they were just about getting the win. So I think there is really no rhyme or reason to it, and people then make a decision based on if you've won at the end or not. So I don't take too much credence in those kind of things, because you talk about champions elect, wouldn't be champions elect just to blow a team out of the water and batter them 3-0. No, why is a late winner in a game when you weren't particularly good the mark of you being champion? This is football, man. Cool. Next question comes from Seba MRXZ. Never mind, everyone's going in on Arteta, man. Max 90. If a successful managerial career can add to the legacy of a former player, for example, Zidane, Cruyff, Pep, he's put Alonso in there, early to tell. When do we start having a conversation about managerial failures detracting from their legends? Rooney, Gerrard, Henry, Lampard.
Idiotic.
It's a separate discussion.
What a nonsense! Like, no, like all of a sudden, so Rooney's not like a top player because he's not a good manager? What on earth are we saying?
Not a good player. I think he's talking about the player's legacy. So for example, the Peps of this world, the Cruyffs, the Zidanes, being top managers or successful managers, I say, has only added to their legacy, only added to their legend, right? He's asking that if you've been a top player and then you end up being a...
I know what he's asking. It's just ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
Why is it ridiculous? I'm going to play
because your playing career is different from your managerial career.
The devil is not employing anybody. You don't have to play devil's advocate.
He is employing a lot of people, actually.
You're right. I see them every day working very hard. No, because I think like it doesn't change what they did as a player, though. It doesn't impact. I think Zidane's legacy being enhanced is because he's excelled. Like, oh my God, what an amazing manager as well.
Mm.
I think once you're a player, that thing is ironclad. You can only add to it. You can't detract from it unless you find out that, I don't know, you would take him. I don't know, you're doing a bad thing, fam. I don't know what you're doing. The hyenas station and stuff. I mean, that's the
I felt like you were going through all the potential bad things you could say. Nope. You know what? Let me just stick with burying hyenas in the middle of your pitch. Yeah. Fair. Cool. Next question. Do panels think the top 6 forwards quality in general are at an all-time low in comparison to the past? From the likes of Mahrez, Hazard, Sanchez, Kane, etc., to Saka, Diaz, Modric, Nunes, Antony, etc.
First of all, I don't like Saka's name being in the list of those guys. That's nasty work.
Yeah, that's nasty work.
But I do think the overall quality is down. So if you pull all the front men, I think you have bona fide, undeniable world class in Haaland and Salah, and then you have top quality in Saka and Son, and then that's pretty much where it ends, really and truly. Rashford as well. Sorry, I forgot about Rash. Like, that's where it ends, really and truly. And Rash inconsistent. Saka still building. Son, we know what he is, top quality. But yeah, I think we also lack that. We're lacking like devastating players. Like we had like Mane who could just beat people at will. We're lacking a lot of like devastation, like from Vardy. That people that
unplayable guys, you know, that when they're on it, it's just unplayable, bro.
It's just wrong. There's literally nobody really like that, fam. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if Mane was active, it's something he could do. Mahrez, Hazard, Gareth Bale, like those type of players. It's just really like Haaland and Salah now, really and truly. And even Salah, he looks kind of nasty, but he's getting it cracking. Lead the league in goals and assists. Like this is his like Wizards Jordan era Salah.
Yeah, or like a Hall of Fame center, like when his knees are gone, it's just post work, man.
Yeah, just all there. Tim Duncan last
muscle memory.
Honestly,
it's institutional.
It's not pretty, but he's getting his 20 and 10, man, every game.
Yeah, that's Salah right now, man.
Got a question from James NUFC 92. Shout out James. He's a Newcastle fan who listens to the pod and constantly thinks
religiously.
Hates you, man. I love it. He said I rep fuck ball, man. Fuck you, man.
He doesn't feel like we give Newcastle enough credit I spent a few days in the comments going back and forth with explaining that you're not quite there, James. But his question this week, obviously Newcastle centric. Has Anthony Gordon been the best left wing in the league this season? 6 goals and 5 assists in 19 games. 6 GA against the big 6 teams this season.
He's in a discussion.
Who are you comparing him with?
Yeah, who was that in the conversation? So I guess Son, I feel like, did most of his goal scoring up top. So I don't know if it was
Doku's in there.
He has done good work on the left in recent times, but at the beginning of the season, it wasn't looking pretty on the left, to be honest.
Agreed. Doku is a snap. Yeah.
So if we go through the teams, like I think he's been better than Doku. Sterling kind of plays a bit of everywhere, mainly on the right. So maybe throw him out. Definitely better than whatever Arsenal are serving up.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some of the
better than Rashford.
Yeah, easy peasy. Better than Rashford.
Been better than Diaz and better than anything we
served.
Yeah,
I don't acknowledge any Liverpool attacker not named Mohamed Salah. Honestly,
it's a pretty fair shout.
He's probably been the best. I'm not gonna cap. He probably has been the best.
But this goes back to our point earlier about maybe like we lack the kind of like devastating quality forwards that we've had in the past. Because Anthony Gordon,
part of it, but I do
4 or
think
5 years ago wouldn't be in that conversation.
I do think Gordon is a very good footballer. Though.
He is. He's very good. Very
watching
good.
Gordon, I see a quality player.
Yeah,
and he's just warming. So yeah,
cool.
Good player.
That's a dub for you, James. I don't want to hear this week that we're not fair.
Yeah, man, we respect Gordon, man. Listen, we'll move on now.
Yeah, I think all the rest of the questions are just thinly and not so thinly veiled digs at Arsenal. I think we've kind of answered all of those going through this week's pod. So once again, gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time. Koogs, Mike's, always box office. The people always love it. It's a interaction that there's respect, but a lot of disrespect too, and just a genuine hatred between the two of you, which I just love to watch as a host. Disu, a pleasure as always. Gentlemen, we do this again. Peace.